Hi, I'm Jeannie Posner, and this is the Posner Property Perspective. As a realtor in Metro Atlanta, I've spent years helping people just like you buy, sell, and create homes that truly fit their lives. In this podcast, we'll dive into everything from home flipping tips, healthy home living, to exploring the unique lifestyles and charms of North Metro Atlanta. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, a seasoned seller, or just curious about real estate, I'm here to educate, inspire, and to guide you through it all. Because buying or selling a home doesn't have to be stressful. It can actually be fun. So let's take a fresh perspective on real estate together. And I'll see you at the closing table.
Welcome, everyone, to the Posner Property Perspective. We have a great guest today, a master of home vesting in real estate, Brandon here. And Brandon and I know each other through HomeVestors. Brandon, I've known you maybe about 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, at least. Probably been 5 or more years by now. Time flies by.
I know now it does. Tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate, what your story
Yeah,
is.
so it's interesting because before I did real estate, I was in sales. I did packaging sales, and it was business to business sales. I worked with a company that did packaging products. So the most popular product with that company is probably bubble wrap. So I sold a different product. I didn't sell bubble wrap. It was a different product. And we were selling to companies like Amazon and Walmart, Target. And my job was pretty much on autopilot at that point. So I started telling my brother a little bit about what I was looking to do. I told him I wanted to manage some projects. I would also like to meet with buyers or sellers. And he said to me, you should think about flipping houses. So I didn't think a thing about real estate or flipping houses at the time until he mentioned it. So after he told me that, I started reading books, listening to audiobooks because I was in the car 6 or 7 hours a day driving all over Georgia to visit customers. And I just couldn't get started. And one day on LinkedIn, it popped up saying, do you know this guy? And the guy's name was Shazad Ali. He is down in Tampa with HomeVestors. And I did. He was a friend of mine. We worked together. He trained me in a previous job when I was in Florida. So I reached out to him. I was like, hey, buddy, you got to call me today. I haven't spoken to him at that point in, 4+ years. And I was like, call me today. I didn't hear from him. A couple hours later, I said, call me today. Please call me. And I did as much research as I could on HomeVestors in those few hours. And when he called me back, it was a guy I trusted. And the rest is history. I said, sign me up. So I jumped in with HomeVestors, which is, the We Buy Only Houses people. And that's now been over 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago, as of this month, really.
Wow. And one of the things when you get in, because you not only flip houses, I think you also have a rental portfolio and you also do Airbnbs.
We do, yeah. So we actually just sold, I think, all of our rentals this year. We're kind of restructuring, but we did have long-term rentals where we had a tenant basically that we inherited. So we kept it as a rental. That wasn't our plan that early on, but it just worked out perfectly. We just sold that one last week. And then we had 4 or 5 short-term rentals where we did Airbnb, VRBO, rented direct to consumers that were looking to stay at a place in the Marietta, Atlanta area, or on the lake. We had a couple on the lake. So we had short-term rentals and they were very profitable for us. And it's a great business. And we recently sold those just so we could restructure and kind of organize our business the way we want moving forward.
So it's interesting that you said it because I have several investors and even some big investors, the ones that own over 10,000 homes in Georgia. And they're also at the point where they are selling some of their investment properties. I think partly people are saying, oh, you know what, I want to get out when the market is still at the high.
Yeah.
They may have gotten their tax breaks and whatever. And now they're settling, looking for that, and now looking for the next investment. So
yeah. And it's, short-term or long-term rental, just rentals, buy and holds in general it seems like the way to go for an investor that wants to build wealth. So everyone works to get to that. The problem is you get a run of flipping houses, you never start building a rental portfolio. You're so used to that quick cash. So it has to be an intentional thing where you plan to do it and you have a start date. the thing is about rentals, I heard this one time in a basically like a seminar of sorts. And the guy who had a bunch of rentals said, how do you plant a forest? You know, everyone sees the forest and wants to have the forest, but how do you do it? Well, you start with planting one tree at a time. It has to be intentional. So it's like the same with rentals. Everybody wants to just start with the forest, and it's overwhelming because the forest is so big. And how do I get to that? And it becomes an intentional thing. Plant a tree every month, or plant a tree once a year. And 20 years from now, you have a bunch of trees. It doesn't happen overnight, but you have to be intentional about it. So our goal is to get to long-term rentals or short-term rentals, buy and holds in general. We just sold because one, short-term rentals just didn't work for what we're doing currently in our business model. And the long-term rental we had was quite a bit away from where we wanted to be. It just happened where the tenant was in place. An opportunity came up for us to be able to sell that. So we did. But we want to be very intentional on where we buy and hold, and where we know it's going to be profitable, not only monthly cash flowing, but also where we know it's going to appreciate. So we're going to be a little more strategic, but it was a good time to sell, at least this year. It kind of helped us out because it's been a little soft in Atlanta selling some houses. So that's kind of helped us out.
And then talking about just buying, how do people start to invest? Because I think everyone watches these 15-minute little TV commercials and think, oh, this is going to be easy. And guess what? It's not.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn for sure. So for me, with my buddy being at HomeVestors, HomeVestors America is a great company, and it was a great opportunity for me, and that worked for me. But it's not the only way. I mean, you and I know that's not the only way. It starts with doing a little bit of research. I mean, there's so much information out there, not only with AI, but before AI, just Googling things, listening to books, fix and flip books, how to renovate properties, how to hold properties, listening to books, whether it's audio books or reading a book, but it starts with doing some research and then really finding a good mentor, whether that's through social media, whether that's through a company like HomeVestors, because you really need help to help you avoid some of these pitfalls that are out there.
So that's one of the things it's definitely important to learn with someone else. And then let's talk about some of the pitfalls. What are some of the things you've seen? You know, I see people who they buy a property, didn't research it well enough beforehand, paid too much for it, and then, or they over renovate it. They renovate it nicer than the neighborhood. And I'm like, no, 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 no. If you would have looked at all the recent sales in that neighborhood, not one of them had a tiled bathroom.
Yeah.
And you could have put in a prefab tub, and you just spent all this money putting in a $12,000 bathroom. That's not what that property needed.
Yeah, I think there's three big things. You mentioned two of them. One of them is missing the value. So many people miss the value just because if you're in the Georgia area, the Atlanta area, and you're watching this, Decatur, right? So take Decatur, for example, or the city of Atlanta. You can have a house that's selling for $1.1 million, and you can have a house across the street that sells for $450. Well, if you use that $1.1 million comp and not know why it sold for 1.1, everything looks similar, but you miss the value because maybe the school districts are different. Maybe you were in a certain park or neighborhood that wasn't on the other side of the street. So when you miss the value, it really hurts you bad. So that's the big thing. If you don't have someone that can show you how to run RVs or after repair values or values on a house, you really need some help there. But then the renovation piece, like everyone thinks they can do it less than what they really can do it for. You know, a $5,000 renovation to somebody because they don't know, maybe a $25,000 renovation. Or on the opposite side, maybe you think it's a $50,000 renovation, it's only 25. So you miss out on an opportunity because you overvalued. So those are the two big things. The third thing is cash flow. Once people get into a cash crunch, you start doing things you weren't do. Once you get in the cash crunch, you get yourself in a bad situation because now you're selling a property that you have value at a discount because you need cash, or maybe you don't have enough cash to buy an opportunity. I mean, it works both ways, but you need to make sure that you manage your cash flow, project 6 months out or more on what's coming in and what's going out, what's sustainable, because if you get in cash crunch and you just stop altogether, you're almost dead in the water. Like you have no way out at that point. So those are the three things: value, rehab budget, and then cash flow.
It's interesting you mentioned something. I had sold a property on a street to an investor. And when we were selling that property, I met someone who owned a house about houses down. And it was a rental property. And he said, Jeannie, I think I'm going to sell in the next year. We kept in touch. Calls me about 6 months after we had sold that other property. Jeannie, come out and look at it for me. I want you to, So I went out there a few weeks ago to look at it, and I drive by the original property, and someone started the renovations and it stopped. And I'm thinking they either ran out of money or something happened. So I called the other agent to say, hey, what happened? Because that property is an eyesore. First of all, it's going to hurt my other property.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and if they don't have the funds, let's find them someone who does so they can finish it. So that'll be interesting to see.
And that's what happens. You get a cash crunch, or maybe in that case, I've seen this happen where a new investor will get a short-term loan, and let's just say it's a 6-month loan, right? Because you're doing a fix and flip loan. Well, maybe they never renovated the house before. Maybe it takes them 9 months plus the time it's going to take to sell, and they either can't refinance it, or the lender says you don't have enough equity, or you don't have enough cash flow for us to extend this loan. We're calling the loan due. I mean, there's a number of reasons where that happens. Or maybe something happened where they picked up another property they thought was a great deal, and now they have two and they're not doing great at both. There's so many things that happen as an inexperienced investor where you find yourself in those situations. You just don't want to ever bite off more than you can chew. And you need a mentor, because if somebody would have looked at that house, they might have said, hey, look, this is easily going to take you 6 months. You probably want a 1-year short-term loan, or whatever the case may be. You need someone to help you kind of avoid that pitfall, because you and I have been through it. Others have been through it. Someone can help guide you around all these landmines that are hidden with a little bit of help.
Yeah, I think it's very important to have someone you can go to, or a team you can go to run out ideas off of. Someone may have come across that same problem before. How did they solve it? We just had someone who bought a property and they found that there was an $11,000 water bill that did not show up during the original title.
Oh my goodness.
And now that's going back and forth with the city to see who's responsible for this. So there's a lot of things that you want to avoid when you start flipping. And, I always tell people, you never know what's going to happen when you open that wall.
Yeah. And that's
you got to be
right.
prepared. So when you're working out your numbers, you've got to have it, an extra 10%. I always tell them 10% over budget. There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
And
you want a budget for that, but you can also, I think a lot of people come in and new, they see so many HGTV shows, because what else are you going to really watch? What else is going to get you excited about fix and flips unless you see it on TV, or maybe some kind of Instagram or something you're watching? But everyone comes in and they feel they have to do these over the top renovations. That's the other thing. Once you start opening walls, who knows what's behind there? So starting off, maybe you want to look at assigning a house where you're selling the contract to someone else, or maybe you want to look at wholesaling, where you buy it and maybe clean it out, fix anything major and resell it. I mean, you don't have to renovate everything unless you buy it wrong. Then you have no choice but to renovate. But if you're always buying right at a good margin where you're safe and have a little bit of room for yourself to be able to sell to someone else, that's going to be the best case scenario, So you have options.
So one of the things you just mentioned, a lot of people don't understand, are assignments, which means, you're buying a property. Maybe you go in, maybe it's someone who's been in a house for a long time. There's a lot of stuff in the house. The family's like, you know what? We live out of state. You take care of it. You buy it. You clean it out. And then sometimes you'll buy it, clean it up, and either assign it to someone else who's going to do the final flip. Sometimes you can even assign it before you've purchased it. What are some of the different things you see right now, that strategies that people are working with?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people right now are doing a wholesale, which is a version of an assignment. So assignment falls under wholesale. So an assignment, like you say, is basically you get a property under contract and then you assign it. Basically, it says everything I agree to here I'm going to sell to you at a higher price to a third party. So you have your A to B, and then the assignment is from B to C, meaning you're selling it to someone else, but whatever rights you have on that contract, you're just selling to collect the middleman's fee. A wholesale is more or less you buy the house, you take title to it, you own it, and then you resell it. Whether it's just cleaning it out or whether it's just selling it as is, that's a wholesale. So right now it seems like a lot of people, or at least me and several others, are wholesaling houses where we just clean them out and we're trying to keep the price as low as possible. Fix anything major, maybe if it needs a roof or an HVAC or a water heater, just because that's a little scary to a homeowner. And then relisting that property. And the reason is with rates being where they're at and everyone being a little skittish, I try to keep the property price as low as possible. Maybe somebody knows a relative in that neighborhood, or maybe that neighborhood's overpriced for them and this gives them a way to get into it. And I do that for a couple months. And if it doesn't work, then I take it down, meaning take it off the MLS where I'm trying to sell it. Then I fix it up and sell it. But a lot of times those properties are moving, at least in this market. And you have to adapt to the market. The market's always changing. We had several great years where you could sell nearly anything in any condition. Well, that's not the case right now. Sometimes the wholesale works and sometimes it doesn't. But I'm trying to adapt and see what works in today's market in 2025, because it's not the same as 2022. So that's what we're doing right now, wholesaling. And then if it doesn't sell, then we add value to it and try to sell it again. And usually it moves. Takes some time, but they'll sell if you're buying them right.
And how did you get into when you say you got into investing? I also know you brought it. Didn't your brother works with you as well?
Yeah.
So how did your whole team come together? How did you get?
Yeah. So, basically the way it worked is I got in, I saw it was a really good opportunity. I told one of my brothers about it, who lived in a different state at the time. He's now in Georgia. He saw it was a good opportunity. He saw that we were doing well. He trusted me. So he joined where he was at. And then shortly after that, my younger brother started working with me as a buyer. So he's actually on my team, where I thought, he was in customer service a long time. I thought he'd be really good at sitting down and meeting with sellers and finding out what's going on, seeing how we could help. That's our big thing, not just with HomeVestors, but in general, the way we live is how can we help? Whether we're the right opportunity or another buyer's the right opportunity or listing it for sales the right opportunity, how can we help you? So he seemed like that type of guy that would do that. So he sits down in the living room, find out what's going on. How can we help, or how can we help you get to the next step in this process? So he started with me and has been doing a great job. And then my last brother, who was in the military, once he got out, the one that initially told me about investing, saw that we were all doing well. And then he started in another state, which is now he's in Georgia. So we're all in Georgia, all flipping houses, all doing well, but it all started from word of mouth and having a little bit of help, because they can lean on me because I've gone through it now.
So someone new coming into investing, there's a few different things. They can come in and buy something that's already been flipped if they want to start a rental portfolio. But if they're thinking of flipping homes, what do you advise them, like financially? What do you think they need to have? Because I think that's an interesting situation.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And the only reason I see that, I hate being vague like that. If I had to throw out a number just for the sake of throwing out a number, I'd say you want to save, get as close as you can to 200,000, just as a general number. But that's not necessarily true, because somebody with $20,000 can do what I'm doing. And the reason I say that is because you may have a family member or a doctor or a lawyer or an investor that's looking to invest in something different besides the stock market, who's willing to give you money because they like you. So you don't want to get yourself in a bad situation, but there's there's times where I bought a house, actually got money back at the closing, which is crazy because I found a lender who was willing to not only give me the purchase price, but give me the rehab up front. So I show up to closing and I'm getting a $10,000 check. So that $200,000 is just me saying, if you wanted to invest in some kind of marketing, whether that's direct mail or social media, whatever it is, it's also to be able to operate your life on a monthly basis without Have to worry about where the money's coming from. That's also money for a down payment, because a lot of times lenders want some kind of down payment. Sometimes it's 20%. You want to have money for the rehab, or so that $200,000 is just a round number, but I mean, you could do this with $20,000 if you knew the right people. There's really no right or wrong answer to that one.
So what it is, it just depends. Just need to know where the resources are to get the money to start the project and keep it going.
Right. That's exactly
I
right.
think that's, like you say, you have
Yeah,
to be
'cause
able
I
to
don't want to
plan.
scare anyone away and say 200,000, because it's hard to come with $200,000. I mean, some people save for a lifetime and will never have that. So that's just a number I threw out there. But I didn't start with that much. I wasn't anywhere near that much when I started. So that's just what I'm seeing, or what I would guess at this point.
You have to have access to have the people that have the funds. And there's all different ways of getting the funds to get the down payment and then putting in the time and energy, but really overseeing your contractors you're bringing in. A lot of people, I think, get into investing have worked in contracting so they can do part of it themselves. But this is not the time to be a DIY. Yeah,
That's
you
right.
got to know a little bit of what you're doing.
Yeah, you want to know a little bit of what you're doing, but you also don't want to get caught up on things. Like if you're trying to do DIY and someone can do it at a much quicker rate or a much quicker pace than you, and it's reasonable, that sometimes makes more sense than trying to do it yourself. And then all of a sudden you're trying to refinance a loan because you went over your timeline. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to save some money here and do it myself, but that's not always the case. Maybe you miss out on another opportunity because you were busy rehabbing a house where you could have subbed it out. I mean, but yes, you definitely need access to resources, contractors, somebody that can finance it, someone that can help you, and you can
That
definitely
gets
do it.
back to being a mentor. I guess it gets back to that as well.
Yeah.
Looking back over your career in investing, what would you say was a mistake that you made early on that people could learn from?
I think a mistake that I made early on, and I keep making it, kind of stubbornness, is sometimes not letting a deal go fast enough. What I mean is sometimes an offer will come in, and let's say I'll make $5,000 on it. And I know that if I wait long enough, I'll make 20 or 25. Sometimes it makes more sense to let that one go and move on to the next one. Because that's happened to me a few times where I thought, well, I'm going to make 20 or 25. I'm not taking this offer, and I'll be bold and somewhat arrogant. Like, I'm not taking your offer. And then all of a sudden, 60 days down the road, I'm wishing I would have taken that offer, because I'm either going to break even, or it took me 2 months longer and I'm still going to make the same. Or maybe the market shifts, like what happened last summer. That happened to me a lot last summer, right before the election, and people just stopped buying houses. It's kind of going on now. There's a couple houses now that we passed on offers, and I'm wishing I would have taken, because now my inventory is starting to stack up. And once you get there, it just changes the way you operate your business. So that's probably my biggest mistake, is maybe being a little too greedy on some deals and not selling them fast enough. Just always trying to hold out. I just need to work on that. I still need to work on it.
It's interesting because one thing I tell when I'm representing a seller and an offer comes in and maybe it's lower than they want, and they're like, I'm not even going to respond to that. I'm like, you know
I get
what?
like that. I get
Always,
emotional and sensitive.
always counter. And that's what it's out. Always counter. It's a starting point. Always counter. But not
Yeah.
countering at all, you may not get anything. And they may
Yeah,
just walk away.
That's happened to me too. It happened to me one time. I think I was selling a house in Marietta, and I was so upset. I was like, I'm not going to respond. And then, no offers come in, like, cause that happened the first weekend. You're like, oh, I'm going to get a ton of offers. And that happens to me a lot. Like, some people say their first offer may be your best offer. And I've heard that before, but I'll get an offer 2 or 3 days within listing a property, and I'll be hard-headed and stubborn, and I won't take it. Sometimes, back in the day, I wouldn't respond. I do now. And then a few weeks later, I'm realizing, oh, shoot, nothing else came in. And then I'll reach back out to that person. They're like, no, you didn't even respond. Like, you didn't even, but I'm begging them, like, all right, let's play ball here. But it's too late. Like, I should have done that at the beginning, but because of emotions, or because of whatever the case may be, because I was maybe over optimistic, I missed out on that opportunity. And who knows, maybe we could have countered, been done with that thing and closed in 30 days. So yeah, you need to always counter for sure and not
Always
be
valid.
sensitive. Don't get upset about it. Unless you have 10 offers, then maybe you can not respond to some, but always counter.
And over the long haul, you have to remember, I think that's one of the things we've seen over the last few years is you always have to be able to pivot and change. That, like you and I have seen, what worked 4 or 5 years ago is not working now. And
Yeah.
you have to be able to change your business structure, your plans, so that you can continue to move your inventory. I keep on
Correct.
telling people right now, we need to be ahead of the curve. The curve's kind of going down slightly. So be ahead of it. And even when you're buying a property that you're going to invest in, consider that maybe if it takes you 3 or 4 months to get it ready, the market could be different.
Yeah.
So you got to keep that in mind now when you're.
You definitely have to take that into consideration with your hold times, but also your resale price. If you're buying a house right now, which is at the time we're recording this is early September. If you're buying a house and you're going to start rehabbing it now, and now you're talking about listing it in the winter, which is a different market than when you were looking at values from the summer because you pull comparables from 6 months ago. Well, now you're talking about comparables that are almost a year old. You know what I mean? And at a different time. Maybe you pull comparables from spring and you're selling in the winter. Those may not be the same. Usually values go up, year over year, but not always. There are peaks and valleys in this business. And usually the winter, you just can't get the same price because there aren't as many people looking. People aren't moving that time of the year. So you just have to take all that into consideration. What time of year are you rehabbing it? When your comparables pull? Were they really comparables? Things like that. Just to make sure you're buying and selling in the same market that you bought in.
When you look at real estate, I mean, I think you said it earlier, and I look at it. If you're going to look at developing long-term wealth in this country, real estate is definitely one of the ways you can build a legacy for your family. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think that's a very true statement. I can't remember which president or which forefather said it, but one of them said real estate creates more millionaires than any other industry. And I believe that to be true because anybody, look at my background. I didn't grow up wealthy at all. I mean, we were in lower middle class and I didn't know that you can do these things that people are doing, but look at me now. So real estate is really, there are few barriers to entry once you have the right people and you kind of get a little bit of help. And anybody can do this thing. You just have to be willing to invest some time to learn the business. So I think real estate for sure is a great opportunity for investing in definitely buying whole properties or where wealth is grown. Look, if you would have bought property in 2018 or 2019 and held it for 2 or 3 years, you know what I mean? The value's nearly doubled. And that was, even if you didn't cash flow those 2 or 3 years, by the time you sold it, your net worth just doubled whatever property you had. So that could happen. That will probably happen again. And even if it doesn't, and traditionally houses appreciate 4.4% a year. So if you multiply that out over 20 years, I mean, you have a lot of growth just by owning the property, not counting if you're cash flowing every month from your rentals. So rentals provide an opportunity for someone else to pay for your lifestyle. So I definitely think it's a way to go for building long-term wealth.
I like the way you said that. So if you want to find out how you could have someone else, say that again,
Yeah.
support
So
your
if you want
lifestyle.
someone else basically to pay for your lifestyle, to fund your lifestyle, like that's what rentals do. I mean, if you buy a house and they're basically paying down your mortgage every month and you're making some money. So, when you own that house free and clear, not only is it worth more, you made money along the way. So they're paying for your lifestyle. It's a great opportunity for that.
So that's why you should be investing in real estate. I want to thank you, Brandon, for coming on today, sharing your wisdom, and look forward to seeing what happens over the next few months as we do real estate together.
Thanks, Jeannie. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Thanks for tuning into the Posner Property Perspective. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it helpful as you navigate your real estate journey. Remember, whether you're buying, selling, or just exploring the market, I'm here to help to make the process smooth, exciting, and stress-free. Let's take the next step together. Contact me today. I'd love to hear from you and make your real estate wishes come true. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and I'll see you at the closing table.